everybody. Welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we are talking about building a profitable personal brand on LinkedIn. I have an amazing guest, and I can't wait for you to meet her. LinkedIn is something that I'm really passionate about. A lot of people tell me all the time, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn, which is such a flattering compliment. And my guest today had a big hand in making that happen for me. So I'm super excited to get into it. So let's get started. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. All right, everyone, I am excited to introduce to you Kait LeDonne. She is a personal branding expert. She is an instructor for CNBC's personal branding program, and she really focuses on using LinkedIn for thought leadership. She is incredible, and I'm so excited to welcome you, Kait. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, no, it's going to be such a good conversation because I feel like we can really just dive into so many different areas. But I'd love to start with your story. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get to this amazing place where you are now?
Like any good entrepreneur, I fell into it completely butt backwards, I would say, in that I got hired and was working for a financial company in 2010. Not a great time overall economically. That was after the last recession. And I found a job through Craigslist, and I was this finance company's first marketing person. They were owned by private equity. And for any of us who know anything about private equity, the long and short of it is they want you to grow and they want you to grow quickly. And so we went from 6 states to, by the end of my working there, like 25 states, and went from the East Coast all the way out and a little past Texas. The reason I built all of that up is because context setting. I was young, just out of college. I got thrown into a highly regulated world. I was the sole person responsible for marketing. And all of a sudden, I was needing to roll up brands and acquisitions and grow this brand. And so it was really sink or swim. And like any good millennial at the time, I thought I need to fake it until I make it here. And so I'm going to go to social media and find some people who can help me. So I started connecting with chief marketing officers in the local area that I was hired in. And I would just learn from them about what should I say at board meetings? How do I set a strategic plan? How do I prioritize initiatives? And I think for me, the way that I learn best is to learn out loud and reflect. And again, I was a compulsive sharer. I'm a millennial. I grew up with social media. And so as I would learn and do these experiments, I would share it on LinkedIn. And before I knew it, people were asking me for how they build their brand. I started to get asked to speak in local communities, some like the Baltimore Business Journal. And then small businesses started reaching out to me to build their brand. And after that, individuals started reaching out to me to build their founder brands on LinkedIn. So it was very naturally progressing in that way. I really built my own following. Then other people took note and said, can you recreate this for me? And at the time, of course, like any good entrepreneur, I wasn't sure that I could, but I figured I will certainly try. And here we are 10 years later, and I have the distinct pleasure of doing this every single day with experts like yourself.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs do. We fall into this and we found gold somewhere and then everyone's like, let's reproduce that. And you have definitely done that. You have made an incredible platform and your courses and everything are you give away the farm. That's your phrase. You always are telling everybody everything. And I love that. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I know even in my industry in home building, a lot of professionals are always talking about, oh, I want to start speaking. I want to start building a personal brand. And LinkedIn is this underutilized platform for doing
It
that,
is.
but it's so amazing for it. So I'm really excited to dig into why do you think that is? Like, why do you think LinkedIn is this like powerhouse and nobody's using it?
It's so interesting to me because LinkedIn, if you look at it from a lifespan perspective, has been around since really the dawn of social media. It was one of the first social media platforms to be introduced. But I would say it only has now reached its tipping point. It crossed a billion users, give or take some. The transparency around China's numbers is not exactly forthcoming, but let's say they reached a billion about a year ago. And so while every other social media platform that came up in the era that LinkedIn came up in, like Facebook, has plateaued in user rate, LinkedIn actually year over year continues to grow pretty much better than any other ones. It's been a slow burn. It's been this uphill push, and now it's at a tipping point. And that's because of a few reasons. Number one, shifting demographics of the workforce. Millennials, Gen Zs, people who are pretty much compulsively online have started to get on the platform and create content. And any platform, social platform, is going to grow when content creators are there. If you don't have people actively creating content, naturally you're not going to see the same growth. So I think in its infancy, people were on there and maybe they were sharing out articles here and there, but they weren't attacking it from a real content creation perspective. Now the member rate is there, but they're also giving users tools that they never gave users before to empower them as creators. And they went so far as to create a creator department about 2 or 3 years ago now, in 2022, they actually created a whole wing of a creator department, meaning we're going to have a full team here who is looking at how to give tools and platform features to people creating content on there. They evolved from basically a glorified networking, resume housing, and job board site to now the platform where you're going to go for business updates and industry updates. And a lot of people are taking note. Traditionally, even in the content creation side, that has been business to business, businesses selling to other businesses. But what you'll start to see now, Sarah, is business to consumer companies making a play there. And as a user of LinkedIn, you'll probably start to see this yourself. If you have seen increased ads on your feed for consumer product goods, for instance, yesterday, I saw a paid ad for Bose sound systems. Had nothing to do with outfitting your office for sound. It had everything to do with home speakers. You'll see that Vegemore, a big company for hair care and beauty, just said that they are launching a full initiative and full-time person to focus on LinkedIn, not because they want to hire more employees, but because they think that millennial and Gen Zs with disposable income who are great target buyer for their hair growth serum is very present on the platform and it's being underutilized. So you'll see a lot more companies of all sizes, shapes, and varieties jumping in to ride the wave that is LinkedIn at this moment.
I definitely have seen those ads start popping up. And
Yes.
in my mind, I'm like, oh, people just realize that people are everywhere online. Like we're just humans on LinkedIn too. But I still hear a lot of professionals that say, oh, it's just an online resume. I just put my work history on
Yes.
there and they don't really use it strategically to build their personal brand. So there's a lot of opportunity, I feel like, just to do so much more. And I also see a lot of people, they go, I just like post sometimes. It's not actually like they just use it. Facebook was 20 years ago. Like
Yes.
it's like there's no strategy. So how do you think that is shifting? How do you think that's changing as people are grasping this new platform?
I think a couple of things. The more that people see there's a huge payoff to posting, the more likely they are to continue to post. And what I see both empirically and anecdotally is the amount of posts you need to perform on LinkedIn to see outsized return on energy pretty much trumps every other platform, meaning on Instagram or on TikTok, you're needing to post multiple times a day to get any kind of traction and break through that noise now. On LinkedIn, you're looking at even once a week, 2 times a week can get you outsized share of voice on the platform, especially if you're posting things that are targeted to your audience. So, when you think about how do I actually get there and stay there now that I'm seeing some outsized return for what is comparable to other platforms, minimal investment, you need to start thinking about your strategy. And every good personal brand on LinkedIn is going to be comprised of 3 different pillars. This is your thought leadership pillar. This is helping your target market. That is educational how to's, that's listicles, that's industry updates. This is really everything circulating around your area of expertise, the thing that you do day in and day out, the thing you want to be compensated for. The other bucket is going to be personal stories. This should take up about 10 to 15% of the content you share. And then your other posts, I call them value signalers. These are things that talk about things you care about above and beyond what you do for a living or the origin stories. When you shake that out, thought leadership, that's going to be about 70% of the time, personal stories about 15%, value signalers about 15% of the time. So if you're posting twice a week, and you look at a monthly basis, you're probably going to reserve 4 of those posts for thought leadership, 2 for personal origin stories, 2 for value signalers. This gives you a well-rounded personal brand, meaning people know what you're experting in, they know your credibility, they know what they would compensate you for. But among that, you don't lose personality because at the end of the day, it's still humans interacting with humans. So they need to understand how you came to be who you are and the things that you value, whether that's growth or physical health, things like that. That's why you sometimes see posts on LinkedIn and you're like, this is smelling a little bit Facebooky. But the
Mhm.
guidance I would give you to make sure that you don't trigger the this should be on Facebook, not LinkedIn red flag is with those personal origin stories and with those value signalers, you always want to bring it back to lessons that you learn or that your audience can learn as it relates to their career or business.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you say that, and I'm like, oh, okay, 75%, 15, 15 makes sense. I've got a number now. Great. And then it's okay. But that imposter syndrome starts to kick in, and you're like, but I don't have anything to say. Who's going to come listen to me talk? And I feel like over the years that's broken down for me, but I still hear it very prevalently with peers. So, how do you coach someone through that?
Okay, first things first. Number one, I have worked with when I say everybody, CEOs who are household names to people who are interns like running and getting coffee. And the great human equalizer is it doesn't matter if you have 5 degrees from MIT, which was literally one of my authors, or someone who's just getting into the workforce, you will experience imposter syndrome. For the author who had 5 degrees from MIT, he's thinking, I have no idea how to formulate anything. Nobody is going to read what I'm saying because maybe I'm super dense or I'm very specific. He had a lot of social media intimidation. For the intern, less social media intimidation, but way more competency intimidation. I don't know anything. Who am I going to educate? The trick is always finding the people who are about a step or two behind you. They're naturally going to be the best people that you can serve because you were right there and you can orient your shares from those perspectives. So the first way to tackle imposter syndrome is number one, realize that the best personal brands have nothing to do with you and everything to do with serving an audience. Find that audience and locate it in someone who's about 2 years behind where you're at in your journey. So for the intern, if I was working with them, I would coach them to talk about surprising things they realize when entering corporate America, advice they would give new graduates, ways to indoctrinate yourself into a company and establish yourself as a person of value. That is content that people are going to want to read. They can also do the flip side of that, which is creating content from an intern's perspective to companies and like, what interns are looking for out of a company, what new hires are looking for out of a company, what Gen Z is looking for out of an employer. You always have someone who wants to understand your unique perspective. You just need to figure out how that perspective is providing value to them. So that is how I talk to people about imposter syndrome. Number one, get out of your own way. You're thinking your content has way more to do with you than it does. And when you make it so you centered, that is when all of that negative self talk comes in. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough experience. If you make it them centered, your audience, oh, okay, I'm going to locate this audience. I want to help prospective home buyers understand a complex and shifting market. Well, 75% of my shares or 70% of my shares are going to be finding the right lending partner, understanding the difference between adjustable rate mortgage and a fixed mortgage, all of that kind of stuff. But you just don't realize that it's immensely valuable to people who don't know it.
So you really need to figure out who that person is that you're talking to
Yes.
first, is what I'm hearing. And
That's the
like,
criminal mistake I see people make with personal branding. They all of a sudden hear the word personal in front of branding and they commit cardinal sin number one of branding, which is not identifying a target market. 90% of your personal branding issues will be solved if you understand the singular representative of the target market you're talking to. You don't get out of that activity just because the brand is you and quote unquote you centric. You have to lean into that perhaps even more, just like corporate brands do.
I do think people forget, and it's like they think, oh, LinkedIn is for B2B. So what am I doing here talking? But
Yes.
it's really like you're talking to other people, your peers, and helping them with whatever. Also, if you want to be a speaker, right? If you want to
Yes.
write a book, like all of those kind of things. So you have to just open your mind to more possibilities, I feel like.
Yes. Well,
Um,
and Sarah, just to zoom in on that really quick, yes,
yeah,
it's quote unquote B2B in nature, but people who are employed by B2B companies are consumers. So it's funny because when I look at people who do extremely well on the platform, when they actually come in from, we'll say, industries that aren't B2B focused and start building their thought leadership on the platform, they actually almost get a cheat code to building their personal brand. I see this a lot with home builders because they think I shouldn't be doing it on LinkedIn. Other home builders aren't, my buyers aren't there. Yes, they are. In fact, LinkedIn users have the biggest household incomes. They are the most collegiate degree holders. They have the most disposable income. So it's actually a really rich target demographic. And you can shortcut just by coming in and being where your competitors aren't because there's not going to be a lot of noise in your space. But you said something else that I really enjoy, which is you have to realize if you want speaking or if you want quotes in the media, 94.2% of journalists say that they use LinkedIn as their first stop to find experts. And I think a criminally underutilized strategy on this platform that, like, if there's one thing you take from this in terms of just I can implement it tomorrow and be on my way, and thanks, Kate and Sarah, for the tip, is look up journalists who write for publications, Wall Street Journal, industry publications, whatever publications cover home building or your area. Go into the publication, find the staff writers, and then follow them on LinkedIn. I do this with a journalist from Business Insider. Sarah, the only thing she posts on LinkedIn is, I need to find people who XYZ. Please DM me if you can provide me a quote for this story. It's where they're networking too. So if you just want to create your own free PR department, I'm going to give you the play. Find the staff writer, connect with the staff writer, follow the staff writer, see what they post, see what they're looking for, and then message them or comment. They are happy to do it. I just had somebody reach out to me today from Fast Company that says, I want I want to ask you about X, Y, and Z. Can you talk tomorrow? These journalists don't come to me through any other platform. They come to me through LinkedIn. That's how I met the casting directors at CNBC. They're looking on LinkedIn. I assure you they are.
that's so powerful. It's so honestly easy.
Yes, it's crazy to me how many hoops people have to jump through, how many
Mhm.
fancy PR retainers they think they need to make connections with journalists who are very accessible
Mhm.
and relatable and happy when you reach out to them on LinkedIn because they're overwhelmed. If you reach out to them and say something like, hey, we just sold out a community in this area. Let's say it's a local reporter. We just sold out a community in this area. And I think there's three things home buyers really aren't paying enough attention to in East Tennessee. And I was wondering, are you seeing this too? It might be a great thing to cover. You've done their job for them. You've
Yeah.
given them a lead. You're not annoying them. You're telling them what's going on. You're being their ears to the ground. You have to think about it like that.
And boom, you're famous.
And boom, you're famous. Wouldn't it be that nice if that's how it worked? And boom, you're
That's it.
famous.
It's so would. I'm curious, like what other myths or like misconceptions do you feel like people have that we haven't talked about? I'm sure there's tons.
Yes,
Um,
there's tons. I could do this in a lot of different directions, but let's take it LinkedIn specific. Myth number two. will say. Myth number one was I don't belong there because maybe my industry is not perfect or B2B. So that's myth number one. Anybody can be on LinkedIn. Anybody can build a really great brand on LinkedIn. Snoop Dogg entered LinkedIn with gusto last year and literally said, I don't understand why more people aren't on LinkedIn. So if that's my like big famous thing is if he says that you should really pay attention because he's pretty much like unanimously a loved personal brand. Like him and Dolly Parton are like, you're never going to hear people say bad words about either of them. So that's myth number one. Myth number two, we covered your personal brand really has more to do with a defined audience than yourself. Myth number three, I would say, is that posting in and of itself is enough. I actually was just reading an algorithm report, and the stats on it were pretty compelling in the sense of if you just leave 5 to 10 thoughtful comments a day, the reach that you get in your post, your profile views, and your connection requests all surpass 20%. And so some of my comments actually outperform, many of my comments outperform my stats. So if you are a little bit trepidatious in posting something, my coaching would be get in the comment section first, really dive in and use somebody else's post to create value with your comments. See what the impressions are on that comment. And then when you get your sea legs underneath of you, you find your voice a little bit through the comment section, then you can start to put out your own posts. But LinkedIn is one of those platforms where there is power in engagement and in commenting. So I think that's a big one. Another myth is people spend and don't spend enough time in LinkedIn groups. They really don't do a lot for you. I wouldn't recommend wasting your time in them. LinkedIn has not figured out groups as well as other platforms like Facebook or even WhatsApp now has. It's just not really worth your time. Hashtags, meh, you don't really need to worry about them anymore. If you do feel compelled to leave hashtags, I would only leave 3. Any more than 3 doesn't really matter. And it's 3 because the first 3 hashtags you use on LinkedIn get baked into the URL of your post, which would help with search engine optimization. And because of that, it'll help with AI optimization, AI crawling and looking for you. So you don't need to stress out about hashtags. They're not something people actively follow. But when it comes to optimizing for search engines, they are going to do well for you if you use about 3 of them. A couple of just other like quick, this is not necessarily myths, but right inside baseball of nailing the algorithm. Post 8 to 10 a.m. local your time. That's always going to be the best bang for your buck. You do not have to post multiple times a day. 3 times a week is going to be just fine. But if you actually post multiple times a day, say 2 times a day, while your overall reach may go up, the individual reach of each post gets cannibalized. So I'm of the mindset just post once a day if you are committed to posting on a daily basis. It's not like other platforms in that way. It does give your content a longer shelf life. It's not as fleeting as other platforms are.
I just learned I'm posting at the wrong time. What about video? Because I feel like it's gone back and forth, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we love video," but then I don't necessarily see that much of it. So, what's the deal?
Isn't it so interesting? LinkedIn video. LinkedIn has darlings that it has favorite children, and you can see it. Like this is our hot young thing at the moment is LinkedIn and its tools. A couple of years ago, it was trying to do stories at the top, like Instagram stories do. It was like came in fast and hot and then walked them right back out. Same thing with LinkedIn Live audio. They walked those back out. It's a really long-winded way of saying video is and isn't a thing that it's trying to push for. It is because it knows that short form video is the way that people learn now. You're going to look up something on YouTube or TikTok for how to get something done very quickly before you do anything else. And if LinkedIn, one of its value proposition statements is making sure that the professionals are today are equipped with the latest and greatest knowledge. They'd be crazy not to pay attention to short form video because that is the name of the game these days. Having said that, they just can't seem to figure out how to really nail it. And so, if you're going to create video on LinkedIn, and there is a place for it because I still see outsized performance when I do short form video on LinkedIn, you do want to pay attention to basically the following guidelines. Number one, Keep it shorter than 90 seconds. If you can keep it shorter than 60 seconds, you're really cooking with gas there. Anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds is going to be good. You want to shoot it in a vertical format, not in a landscape format. It takes up more space on the feed. You want to make sure that there's captions there. And then you don't want your post that you create to publish it to compete with the video, because people aren't really going to see the long form post anyways, depending on what platform they're looking at the video on. So there's a place for it. I wouldn't say make it central to your strategy. Text is still going to be the biggest performer at large on this platform, but that's not to say that you shouldn't be trying it. Again, when I do release podcast clips on LinkedIn, I do see it perform pretty well compared to other things.
Yeah. And that's text with an image, right? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying? Yeah.
text with an image, and the image should be of you.
That's
Now,
I think what scares people.
there is conflicting data about this. In Richard Vanderblum's report, who he's like the godfather of LinkedIn algorithm, he studies it every year. He's going to tell you that unless the photo is super contextual to the post, that you shouldn't include the photo.
Oh.
Anecdotally, I see counter information from my side. Even if the photo is not super contextual to the post, like it's just a selfie of me, it still performs better than none. And I think that's because in a world of mass AI slop, it is still a way you're humanizing yourself and bringing proximity to the reader.
Yeah. And that feed like size as well. A lot of people are on their phone and it's going to take up a bigger space.
100%.
I know for a lot of our listeners, this is going to be really important. So, how could somebody identify what their like unique experience or skills or like value? And so they're not like just repurposing the same thing that everyone else is saying. How can you, what would you give somebody as like a starting point for that?
I think if you really want to go into a unique perspective, first of all, understanding your value proposition is never going to be a bad exercise, right? I help blankety blank target market who struggle with blankety blank, very painful problem to blankety blank
Yeah.
achieve a certain goal. So once you have that down, say for me, I help professionals who are looking to become household names clarify their message and build an audience so they can do more work that they love and get paid really well for it. That's your good starting point. But that's not necessarily maybe waking you up out of bed in the morning or waking somebody else up out of bed in the morning. And so one of the things that I found is finding your POV within your UVP, your unique point of view within your unique value proposition. And that's how are you layering a story into that? So when I do that, I help professionals grow their brand on LinkedIn. It's fine, it's good, it's whatever. When I say that I help people grow their expertise in 30 hours a week and make $500,000 a year, all of a sudden people's eyes light up. And really, the differentiator in there, besides very specific numbers around what that looks like, is I think it provides an actual image of what their life could look like. But I didn't just get into that from nowhere. That was my experience. I was running an agency. I grew it past seven figures. I was losing my mind and sleep and everything else. And I decided, you know what? I would just be super duper happy if I could work 30 hours a week, take home 500 grand a year, do work I love. And that became my own internal marching beat. And that's what was made possible for me through LinkedIn. And so when I realized that that's just what other people wanted to do, is monetize their personality and their skill set so they could do that exact same thing, that's when the wheels really came off, was inserting that POV. So I want you all to think about, who are you helping? What's the problem they have? And what do they want to get to? But then what's a very specific story or future image that you can point them to? Bonus points if it has something to do with what you went through too, because then you can really speak about it through your own experience. So if you're saying something like, I'm helping home buyers find their dream home, that's really lovely. But if you're saying, and I'm going to bring it into my area because I live in a very competitive area, I'm helping first home buyers in the tri-state area find their perfect home in the suburbs so they can raise their kids. It's very specific to New York City suburbs, and it's giving them a future image of what they want. And it's actually one of my favorite stories if you all have or have not heard of Suburban Jungle, the whole value proposition was there's yuppies that are in the cities. They need to figure out where they're going to go to the suburbs. We're going to match them to the suburbs. And they exited, I think they sold to a private equity firm for like buku money because that was a very specific point of view within home buying. It wasn't just home buying, it was suburb selection.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So how would somebody like approach that like storytelling aspect?
I think a couple of things exist in all great stories. Joseph Campbell was a philosopher and really minted the hero's journey, which sits at the center of every central pop piece of fiction and even mythology, right? Odysseus, blah, blah, blah. And the hero's journey is there's a hero, Harry Potter. He gets a call to action. He denies it. He answers the call. He meets a mentor. He meets helpers. He goes to the pinnacle thing. He has a series of challenges. There's a metaphorical or literal death and rebirth, and then he comes back to the ordinary world a changed person. If you can apply that hero's journey to your own stories, you're going to find that there's certain elements that are inherent in that. Number one, a climactic struggle. So, what is the climactic struggle? But the problem in the storytelling freeze I see with a lot of professionals is they think the climactic struggle needs to be earth shattering, like it is in a lot of stories. Or I help my client get $1 million contract. Like it's not until the climactic struggle is earth shattering do they think it's worthy of sharing. That couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, it's what I call the David moments of the day, as in David versus Goliath, like they're actually more relatable and people pay more attention to them. So a climactic struggle of a story is perhaps you're in Zoom meetings 6 hours a day. If you figured out a way to even get that down to 3 hours a day, that's a climax. Like I had this problem, my days were just never ending Zoom meetings. I figured out this tweak or this series of three tweaks, and now I have only 3 hours a day in meetings, or I have 2 days a week where there's no meetings and I'm figuring out whiteboard envisioning time. That is powerful, but you understand what the challenge is and what the climax of the story is, and then you're buffering it with things leading up. You're building. When I was doing these meetings every day, I had no time for follow through. I had no time for strategic thinking. I was losing my soul. These are all leading up to. And then after I experienced it, here's what the after looked like. So every great storytelling element or story has the following few elements. It's what is the climactic moment, and don't hang the moon and the stars on it. It could be something as simple as I found out the right camera for my podcast setup. That's a climactic moment and a struggle. The build up to it, how you were experiencing Zoom meetings or podcasts without the camera, and then what life has been like since. You nail those three elements, you're pretty much going to nail a story.
Yeah, that was definitely that was my problem. I was trying to pull in too much like emotional connection into it as well, which is great when you're making a story about like buying a home or a community, you want to have all these things. But when I am talking about like your Zoom example, I'm like, but what's emotional about it? And I get all in my head about it. And that's when the story starts not sounding so story like.
Yes, I think the best advice I can give in that way is do what every great editor does. I write all of my content in one setting. I set it down. I walk away. I come back to it. And with eyes anew, I'm like, oh, not pertinent to the story, not pertinent to the story. Because what we really want to go for in any form of communication is word potency. If you can say in 10 words what you chose to say in 100, each of your words is going to be a tenth less powerful if you use 100. So you really want to think of like, how do I jam pack the most feeling, the biggest bang for my buck? Return on word is a really big thing. And that's not to say you need short, compact statuses, but you should be very generous by discarding anything which isn't like plot centric.
Yes. I'm trying to do that with my emails too. Just say the thing. That's what I tell myself 100 times a day. Just say the thing.
Yes, just say the thing.
Okay, so there's one more thing on LinkedIn that we haven't talked about yet, but I think they're exploding and they're like so powerful, and that's LinkedIn newsletters. So tell me about LinkedIn newsletters. Who should be using them? What are they? All the things.
LinkedIn newsletters, there's two tools on this platform that I think are very slept on. And one of them is LinkedIn newsletters, the other is LinkedIn Live. We can break down both of them. But
Yeah.
LinkedIn newsletters, let's start with them because they're my baby. LinkedIn news, I love them. LinkedIn newsletters are basically LinkedIn's way of allowing you to have an episodic container for individual articles. So long ago it was called Pulse, LinkedIn Pulse, and you could just publish articles on LinkedIn, long form articles, stuff that's too long or in depth to be a status. And then they gave you the ability to basically create a container for all of your articles and call it something, just like a magazine, and people can subscribe to it. And so LinkedIn newsletters do a few things for you. Number one, LinkedIn is going to incentivize you to create a newsletter by rewarding you with some pretty built in subscribers. Most people I know, when they start and create their newsletter, they get an influx of subscribers from their first degree connections and people who are already following them. Number two, LinkedIn is going to email that newsletter out to those people who have subscribed so in far as they have a valid email address they're associating with their LinkedIn account. Obviously, if they just use an email that they never check, that's a moot point. And they have left on the ability for LinkedIn to email them those newsletters. So for me, for most of my LinkedIn newsletters, I have a 20% read rate through people who are reading it off platform in their inbox. Number three, we're at a point now where long form content does have a place again, which is funny because short form video wins the day on a lot of channels. But now, with the rise of things like Substack, you're going to see that LinkedIn newsletters wants in on that piece of the creator pie, if you will. And so they're doing a lot of things to incentivize these. The cool thing about LinkedIn newsletters is you can get people to subscribe to your newsletter who don't even follow you. So I like to make the case that I have at this point about 41,000 followers on LinkedIn, but my LinkedIn newsletter has and has for a while had over 51,000 subscribers. And it's had 51,000 subscribers since I've had 20,000 followers, which means it's always been pretty much more than double my
Mhm.
follower count. And that's LinkedIn wanting you to create long form its content, because when you create long form on the content, people are going to stay on their platform longer. So, how do you really use newsletters to your advantage? Number one, if you publish bi-weekly, you're actually going to get a higher read rate than if you publish weekly. Right now, I'm just a content machine, and so much of my business is predicated upon content that I do weekly and I sacrifice the reach. But this doesn't mean you need to publish a newsletter every week. Even if you do one every month, that's like an industry roll up or a market roll up or a market rundown, whatever, you're going to find that the platform rewards you for it. You can also use your LinkedIn newsletter to power the rest of your content strategy. The reason I still write a LinkedIn newsletter is because I'm lazy when it comes to creating short form content. So, what I was doing before is, oh my goodness, I have to publish 5 times a week. I now need to think of 5 novel things to say, and I need to think of how to say them. But I got myself into what I call a content pulse or a content rhythm, which is I write one long form article and then I just chop that into 5 smaller pieces of content. And voila, now I have 6 pieces of content. So it's counterintuitive that I think the lazier you are, lazier air quotes, the better long form content can work for you, because it becomes the backbone of which you can break off pieces of it and create shorter bits versus then re-engineering the wheel every single time you want to do short form. So that's LinkedIn newsletters. The other big part of this that I didn't say is we are currently in a state where there is way more demand than there is supply. And of course, we know this because we're all operating in home building. When there is more demand than supply, the people who have the supply are winning. So in this case, newsletter publishers will get outsized eyeballs on their newsletters because there's just not enough supply to meet the demand of people who are hungry to read that long form on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So your advice is be lazier.
Be lazy. Work
No,
smarter, not harder.
it is true though, because like I think people they think, oh, but I've already said that. Every single person of their followers is going to read every single thing and remember it. And that's just not the case. You can actually recycle so many things and make your life so much easier.
And Sarah, it's not just about what's easier. It's about what works better. Humans need to hear things about 7 to 12 times to form an association. And that's very gratuitous with today's attention span. And that's also pretty case specific to adults. If they're kids, we all know they need to hear things about 100 times. And even then, they're like, why? But let's just go with the number 12.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a little light, but we'll use it for shits and gigs. So let's go with the number 12. So you need to say the same thing 12 times before somebody really gets locked and loaded on that and associates it with you. Now, let's say you publish it out 12 times. People on a good day are going to see about 25% of the content you put out. So already, if we do the math, that means that you multiply 12 times 4 or 48 times to get a shot of anybody to see it the 12 critical times. But remove that, maybe they hop on the platform here and there, maybe they don't. And so you have to build in a little bit of a contingency buffer in that too. Round that up. Maybe on the 55th time you've said the exact same thing, that person's going to be like, oh, Kait does personal branding. It is so wildly simple how effective repetition is and how underutilized it is. I am convinced that the reason my brand finally hit another level of tipping point this year is because I changed my brand message about 2 years ago, and then I really honed it, and then I just started spinning the hits, and it was finally like the lights went on in people's minds and, oh, I get it, she does personal branding. And so you have to be dogged about that. You have to know that not only are people needing that, your brand is needing it if you have even a hope and a prayer of being heard and being understood in today's attention economy.
Yeah, I heard I was at a conference last week, and I guess scientists have been studying like human attention spans and all of that, and they've actually found that it's shorter now than a goldfish. And
100%.
I was like, I am so embarrassed to be human
Yes.
right now. That
Yeah.
is just, come on.
It's pretty abysmal. But if we know this, then we can stop
Mhm.
fighting it, and
Yes.
you can really give yourself the benefit of realizing that repetition is going to work for you. And if you look at the people who do personal branding really well, a lot of those people, for better or for worse, are politicians. And what they do better than anybody else is repeat the same thing 70 million times. And it works. It just works.
Yep, it does. So if we were talking to someone that is just like has zero readers right now, would you recommend that they start a LinkedIn newsletter, or yes or no? And or what else would you recommend them do?
I think that if you are somebody who can commit to long form writing at least once a month, it is never a bad idea to start a newsletter. Now, whether that's LinkedIn, whether it's Substack, whether it's an email newsletter, organizing your thoughts long form gives you the raw material to then build other content off of it. So I 100% think they should do that. There's some softball plays in there, which is people who haven't been active a while on the platform, active in a while on the platform. I always advise them just start off with a reintroduction post. And this is something you should do pretty much every other month, anyways. Hey, it's been a while since I posted on LinkedIn, or I haven't posted on LinkedIn. So I figured it would be a great time to introduce or reintroduce myself. My name is Kait. I help professionals monetize their personal brands so that they can do less work, but do more of the work that they love. And recently, I've had the great pleasure of, and then teaching for CNBC, doing this, doing that. When I'm not doing this, you can find me in Central Park with my daughter. You can find me trying to sleep train my daughter, like just some personal bits, blah, blah, blah. And then it's great to be connected. If you have comments, put them below. This does a few things. It endears you to your audience. It allows you to repeat your unique positioning statement. And it takes care of that necessary repetition for you. If you do that once a month or once every other month and you just put in other icebreakers in there, you're going to find that it is really integral in getting people to understand who you are and what you're about. So that's a really easy one to just come out swinging with.
Yeah, more people should do that. I should do that more. Those
Every time I
reintroductions.
talk about it, I'm like, Oh, it's been about 60 days. I should really do it again.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing too. You're like, don't know what to post today? Reintroduce yourself. Like, go with
100%.
it. I love to ask, what other things do you feel like we didn't talk about yet? Or if you were to give like your one advice, what would it be?
My one advice for personal branding at large is this: if you choose one audience with one specific problem on one platform and you hit that drumbeat over and over and over and over again, you will find success. When there is a personal brand breakdown, it's because of one of those three things slipped. So let's take them one by one. One, you don't know your target audience. You're appealing to this person, but also, hey, I could work with this person, but also about this person. When you can't locate who's reading the post, you have a tendency to speak less specifically. And when you're speaking less specifically, you're going to erode your resonance with your audience. So that's number one. Number two, one problem. Again, let's say you know that you want to target new home buyers or developers or something, but you're talking about everything in the kitchen sink when what can go wrong. Nobody knows how to refer to you. They don't know if you're the person that solves this or solves that or solves whatever. So, in the case of the suburban jungle, example, if you are, let's say, a real estate agent, because that's adjacent to home building, you're selling them, or an agent in general, maybe your whole shtick is the problem of people don't know what suburb to choose. And so you want to be really the tour guide for the suburb. And you can dive into that problem myriad ways. The best cafes in the area, what parts of town are most walkable, what schools look like in that area. You can really build a whole brand around being that compass. But if you try to solve that, and you're trying to solve what shutters to pick, and you're trying to solve everything in terms of square footage, all of a sudden there's so much content there that you don't get known for any one thing. I'm not saying don't include those other parts, but I'm saying if you don't have one thing that you're repeating as the hero of the brand enough, it's really hard for people to locate you and refer you. And then the third thing is you're trying to be on too many platforms because you heard TikTok is having a moment, because you heard YouTube is really good, because you heard LinkedIn is having a time where you can get outsized share of voice. To me, let's take LinkedIn out of it, even though that's really my focal point of helping people. As long as you are brand consistent, audience consistent, and problem consistent, it isn't until you max out on that that you add another one into the mix. So, literally every week, I get approached by YouTube producers or podcast producers being like, Kait, we follow you. We think you should release a podcast or release a YouTube. And I say to them, I totally agree with you. And once I max out LinkedIn for me, which is I get to 100,000 followers, once I do that, I'll then take on another platform because I still think I haven't gotten the potency I can achieve on just this platform. And so I don't want to fracture my time and attention. Now, that answer is a little different once you grow enough and you have resources to pay other people to help you get there and do the work. But I think I'm only now at a point where I'm understanding what I have done that has made my LinkedIn so effective that I'd feel comfortable then taking the learnings from that and replicating it into another platform. So give yourself time and pay attention to those three things.
Yeah, a lot of people feel like they need to be everywhere all at once in order for this to work. And that's very overwhelming. So it
Yes.
is, you're very smart with doing that. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of this info. I feel every time we talk, I just come away with so many takeaways and I'm like, oh, now I have to change all of the things. But it's actually like actionable, which is what I really love. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I know that a lot of people are going to want to reach out to you. I know you're going to say they can reach out to you on LinkedIn,
Yes.
but where else? Where else could they find you, or how would that look like?
KaitLeDonne.com, Kait. How to make it difficult, not Kate. Kait is Kait. I'm also accessible on Instagram, but to way less of a degree than LinkedIn. On Instagram, you're just gonna find me trying really hard to cook and sometimes doing well at it and sometimes not, which is fine.
We all have our strengths, right? Yours is
Right.
LinkedIn. Okay, well, find Kait on LinkedIn. I will put her link below, also her website. Definitely follow her. If for nothing else, just all of the good tidbits of information that she posts are amazing. You also have an email list that I absolutely love as well. Where can they find the sign in for that?
If you go to, I'm going to keep this really simple for everybody. If you go to LinkedIn, at the very top of my profile, it says view my newsletter. Just hit that. It's the easiest way to get there. You can go to my website too, and you'll find the sign up link.
Perfect. All right. Everyone, thank you for being here as well. I hope you found value in this, and we will see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.